I flipped hundreds of furniture pieces. And when it came to my wedding day, I knew that I had to create something that was custom and bespoke that I could use as my sweetheart table. In today's video, I'm going to show you some inspirational ideas and how I DIY'd my own sweetheart table, inspired by a fun technique by Christina Mascari. Sweetheart tables are a great idea if you're wanting to have a more intimate setting for you and your partner on your wedding day. Some of the options of tables you could use: a smaller dining table flanked with either some flowers on the bottom and on top, and some lovely fabrics draped across it just for a bit of softness. Round tables are also another great option. You could use a pattern fabric or a solid block color to cover and drape over this dining table. You might have some flowers that you've used in your ceremony along the aisle, and this could be picked up and placed in front of the round table as well. So there are so many great ways that you can repurpose your ceremony flowers into your reception as well. Another fun element you could add to the sweetheart table is statement chairs. Use a banquette seat and maybe a velvet or a really cool fabric, or you could use those boho chairs that have the really high tall backs. There are so many ways you can mix and play with different styles and textures and colors. The look and style that I was going for my wedding was classic and timeless. For that look, I was trying to source something that had spindle details on the legs, as it's just a feature that I really love on furniture. Christina Mascari was one of my inspirations of a technique that I wanted to try, which I haven't done before. It's a 3D applique that you create using either resin or clay, and it gives a really lovely 3D texture and element to the furniture piece. With that in mind, I created a mood board to make sure that I had a visual guide for what elements I was looking for in my furniture pieces. And from that, got to work trying to source something on Facebook Marketplace. There are two elements that I was looking for in my furniture piece to upcycle. One, it had to have spindle legs, and second, it had to have enough surface area that I could apply the appliques on as well. So I headed over into Facebook Marketplace to see if I could find a desk, a hall table, or maybe a dining table that could work as my sweetheart table. In my search, I did discover the sweetest desk that just wouldn't actually need much refinishing at all, that had the most amazing details on the front, and I loved the little spindle legs, and it was even on wheels. Unfortunately, I did miss out on buying this piece as I didn't respond fast enough on Facebook, so that's definitely a tip. If there's something you love, go for it straight away, because you never know how quickly it's going to go. So I decided to keep looking and ended up finding this great white desk that was only $25. So I reached out to the seller, and thankfully it was available and I picked it up. As I was wanting an exposed timber top and painted body, the first step was to sand off the layers and layers of white paint that was underneath this table. Here's how the desk looked after that first batch of sanding. If I was going for a more neutral look for my wedding, I could actually just whitewash this timber top and then keep that base white. But as I was going for color on my wedding, I had a few more steps to go until this piece was ready. Next, I moved on to the finishing sanding on 120, and then I finished and ended it all on a 180 grit. To make sure my chalk paint was going to adhere, I gave the base and the spindles a good scuff sand. I wanted to keep costs down as much as possible, so I decided to mix up and create a custom color using whatever leftover paints I had. The color that was made was a gorgeous mid-tone blue that I'm really happy with. Next was to move on to making the clay mold, and I'd seen that applying baking powder was a really useful way of making sure that the clay would stick into the mold and it would pop out nice and cleanly. I bought a few different clay molds, but I liked the leaf option the best as I didn't want anything too detailed. I just wanted a bit of texture and movement on the desk. To create the mold, I used some air dry clay and just smooshed it into the mold and then pushed it out. If you're thinking about using an applique, I definitely would recommend using resin, as you wouldn't have to then do this next step that I did. So because it was clay and had a lot of excess, I had to trim away the excess on the outsides of the leaves and on the insides. Then, having the desk laid down, I placed these appliques onto the desk and attached it with super glue. If you're working with clay, it's really important to glue this down when it is still fresh rather than when it's dry, because if it's dry, it's actually going to have expanded and it won't actually adhere very well to your surface. Typically when I refinish furniture, I tend to go for a whitewash finish, but doing a whitewash timber stain on this desk for my wedding just would have been out of context, as the barn has a lot of rustic textures. I really wanted my sweetheart table to feel in context to the space, so I wanted a stain that was going to complement and balance nicely with the raw natural timber that they had for their dining tables, which was this really deep, warm, sort of chocolate, sort of walnut tones. So I thought this finish by Purico paint would be the perfect finish for this desk. When I'm staining timber, I like to paint with and against the grain to make sure that it gets absorbed into all those grain textures. Then I'll use a linen cloth to wipe off the excess. Once this is dried, I then apply hemp oil to give it a bit more of a depth and richness in the stain, and it also helps seal it as well. To make these leaf appliques just pop a little bit more, I applied a gilding wax by Fusion in a rose gold finish. With my upcycled desk all finished, the last step was to take it to the venue and have it set up, and this is what I did.
This is as good a day as any to start the rebuilding of life. The roads that lay open are many when the old one's gone under the knife. And I can feel the sun on my skin, beginning to thaw from within.
The really cool thing about having upcycled my sweetheart wedding table was that I get to keep it and still use it. Today it sits in my living room, and it's a table that both my husband and I use when we're wanting to work from home. It's a great little piece that reminds us of a really happy day, and it's just really functional and pretty as well. I'd love to know, what did you do for your wedding day? Did you sit at the table with everybody else or have a bridal party, or did you use a sweetheart table too? In the coming weeks, I'll be sharing so many more wedding DIYs and tips. Make sure you're subscribed and have the notifications on so you're aware when those videos come up. In the next video, I'll be sharing how I made a really special sentimental confetti display holder for my ceremony. So thanks for watching, and see you next time.